My ex-fiancée had no idea that I had completely wiped her from my mind. She once sobbed at my bedside, begging me not to die. She even promised to marry me. Like an absolute idiot, I believed her, and practically dragged myself back from the brink of death. But the moment I finally woke up, she dumped me to marry someone else. She actually laughed at her wedding, telling reporters she only ever saw Sterling Vance as a generous donor who paid her bills. I was turned into a massive joke, nothing more than a background character in her story. So while she enjoyed her incredibly lavish wedding, I lit a stick of soothing sandalwood incense and permanently pressed Ctrl-Alt-Delete on her inside my head. When I opened my eyes, there she was with teary eyes, asking if I seriously did not remember her anymore. I blinked, stared back with 100% genuine confusion, and asked her who she even was. She went completely pale and almost collapsed. Finally, I was no longer that pathetic Sterling Vance who would beg on his knees for a tiny scrap of her love. After waking up, I was going to thoroughly erase Elo Thorne from my mind. As for the Frost family heiress, sign me up because I am ready to marry her. You see, Elo Thorne was a Go board game prodigy my family sponsored for 7 long years. She had absolutely zero interest in normal life, possessed an aura colder than an office air conditioner, and claimed her world only had room for black and white game pieces. She rejected me 99 times. Finally, on my 100th try, because apparently I loved misery, she said yes. But a few days later, Elo Thorne got into a bad car crash and conveniently developed classic soap opera amnesia, completely forgetting who I was. The wedding was delayed, but while standing right outside her hospital room, I overheard that Elo Thorne's junior apprentice was about to undergo a very dangerous surgery. Fearing he might die, she wanted a dream wedding first. Get a load of this girl pretending to marry Sterling Vance just to make her junior brother Barnaby go crazy with jealousy. He immediately claimed that he would never marry any other woman besides you. Talk about cheesy. Aside from me, he is absolutely not allowed to marry anyone else, even for a fake wedding. Aren't you worried Sterling Vance will show up and make a scene? Don't even bring him up. From this moment on, we are total strangers. Sterling is probably bringing over his homemade chicken soup again soon. Do me a huge favor and just pour it straight down the drain. I froze right where I stood, staring down at the warm thermos of soup in my hands as a massive wave of bitterness flooded my chest. Turns out Elo Thorne was never actually cold. She just wanted a different man to keep her warm. Since she wanted a clean break so badly, I decided to give her exactly that. A toxic woman, with another man in her heart. I, Sterling Vance, wouldn't take her back even if she came with a discount coupon. Grabbing my specially blended sandalwood incense and a pocket watch, I opened the door to the hypnotherapy room. I was used to hypnotizing other people, but this was my very first self-session. Forget Elo Thorne, wipe away every single trace of her, like a completely formatted hard drive. I chanted those words over and over. The rhythmically swinging pocket watch and the rich aroma made my eyelids feel incredibly heavy. Within minutes, I drifted off. An hour later, I slowly opened my eyes, feeling completely lost. Why on earth was I lying in this hypnotherapy room? Even weirder, it felt like a piece of my soul had been completely sucked out, leaving me totally empty. I pushed the door open and found my older sister, Cassandra, waiting outside. Sterling, you seriously just hypnotized yourself. Cassandra took a very deep breath. Do you actually remember who Elo Thorne is? Elo Thorne. I tried searching every corner of my mind for any trace of that name, but hit a massive blank wall. Never heard of her. I shook my head. Did I seriously put myself under just to forget some girl? Yes, Cassandra sighed heavily. You loved her for 7 whole years, but she is marrying someone else, so you decided to stop loving her. I listened without feeling even a tiny flicker of emotion, simply because I had absolutely no memory of this Elo Thorne character. Listen to this, it felt like I was just a stranger hearing how I played a loyal puppy for 7 years. Looks like choosing to erase her was the smartest move. A girl like that was never worth my affection anyway. I felt completely at peace. By the way, when does the Frost family need me to show up in Ning City? I asked. Within 5 days, Cassandra replied. I nodded. Perfect, I will just use these next few days to wrap up my local work. Together, the two of us walked out of the house. Cassandra dropped me off at the Go Academy before heading out. I suddenly remembered that I had left my watch here last time and never grabbed it. Right as I was about to step inside, a woman with an unfamiliar face glared at me with pure rage. She marched over and snapped with pure annoyance, asking if I was ever going to stop, repeating that she did not even know me. Why do you keep shamelessly crawling back? Do you seriously have zero self-respect? I frowned, completely baffled as to why this random stranger was unloading a massive verbal beatdown on me right off the bat. I told her she had the wrong guy and turned to leave, but she just let out a scoffing laugh. She asked what new trick I was playing and begged me to stop. Telling me to stay away, I just rolled my eyes at the psycho. I walked straight past her and into the Go Academy, leaving her in the dust. Eloin froze. What was going on? I literally just walked right past her. No desperate begging. No annoying rants about our past. This was exactly what she wanted, so why did her chest suddenly feel so tight? Elowen clenched her fists, her brow furrowing deeply, right when the wedding planning company called. She quickly drove away from the academy. Meanwhile, after grabbing my watch from the front desk, the character exhibition on the wall caught my eye. With just one glance, I spotted the very same woman I had run into at the entrance. Elowen Thorne, age 27, a 9-Dan-go player, currently leading the world rankings. She was a multiple-time champion in international tournaments. That is when it finally hit me. She was the Elowen my sister kept talking about. Just think about that. He literally had to use hypnosis to completely wipe this toxic woman from his mind. Otherwise, I would probably be crying in some corner right now instead of feeling absolutely nothing. Erasing Elowen Thorne from my brain was 100% profit with zero drawbacks. On my way back, a cheerful, bright-looking guy waved and ran up to me. "Hey, I am Barnaby." He thanked my family for helping Elowen in the past, saying it made her who she is today, before bringing up some old proverb about being indebted to others. You take from others, and your hands are tied. He told me I should understand this logic, demanding I stop using my status as the Vance family heir to constantly pester Elowen. Before I could even process his words, Barnaby glared with pure disgust, saying he and Elowen were marrying and telling me to stop showing up if I had any self-respect left. I was absolutely boiling with anger. I literally just came here to retrieve a watch, only to get lectured back-to-back by this absolute dynamic duo of delusion. I just smirked at him, reminding him that trash belongs in the dumpster. I promised I would not try to steal his precious Elowen away, leaving Barnaby looking completely deflated. He told me he knew I was just acting calm, challenging me to prove my guts by not crashing their upcoming wedding. The moment he finished speaking, he suddenly ripped the diamond ring off his finger and hurled it straight into the rushing river nearby. The ring cut a perfect arc through the air before hitting the water with a loud splash. I stared at this bizarre performance in absolute disbelief. Before I could even wrap my head around it, he whipped out his phone to make a call. He sobbed into the phone to Elowen, sounding like he had suffered the worst injustice in human history. He cried to her that I came looking for trouble and threw his diamond ring away. Elowen immediately replied that she was coming right now. Her cold, deep voice echoed from the speaker, leaving me standing there completely dumbfounded. I had barely taken a few steps before a black sedan sped over, slamming its brakes to block my path completely. The door flew open and Elowen marched out in a fury, unleashing a brutal slap that whipped my face to the side. Swollen red finger marks immediately flared on my cheek as she sneered, saying she knew I would not let things go, and that this was my pathetic move. Elowen forcefully grabbed my arm, dragged me to the edge, and shoved me straight into the river. And honestly, you won't believe how cruel she is as she literally shoves him into that bone-chilling, freezing river. My teeth were chattering uncontrollably. Who knew this river was so deep? I could swim, but the freezing temperature instantly stiffened my entire body. One of my legs got tangled in thick underwater weeds, making it a major struggle to keep my head up. I desperately screamed for help at the gloomy-faced Elowen on the shore, shouting that I did not throw his ring. He threw it himself. Elowen just sneered that I had the guts to do it but was too cowardly to admit it, calling me hopelessly incurable. Narrowing her eyes, she told me not to bother coming up if I did not find it. Barnaby then whined that the weather was way too cold. He begged her to let me out, gently tugging her coat to play the role of a sweet, understanding angel. He claimed getting sick is terrible and he did not want to see anyone suffer, but Elowen remained completely unmoved. She said if I did something wrong, I had to be punished so I would finally learn my lesson and never bother her again. As my splashing grew weaker, her brows knitted together in concern. Another 5 minutes slowly ticked by. The river surface turned eerily calm, and I did not come back up. Elowen yelled at me to stop playing victim and find the ring. She ordered me to get out of the water, but the only response she got was the howling of the freezing wind. She screamed if I was deaf, a sudden flash of panic finally crossing her eyes. She plunged straight into the river and swam down, instantly spotting me floating there with my eyes shut, looking completely lifeless. My right leg was completely trapped. Instantly, Elowen felt this suffocating tightness squeeze her chest. Dragging me out onto the muddy shore, she gave me a rough kick with the toe of her shoe, telling me to wake up. But I didn't move a muscle, though she noticed I was still barely breathing. Barnaby stared right at my dark, dripping hair, casually mentioning how incredibly nice Mr. Vance's hair actually is. He whined about his upcoming brain surgery and how they would have to shave his head, sighing that even the priciest wigs can't compare to genuine hair. Elowen asked if he wanted my hair, making Barnaby act completely shocked while quickly waving his hands in mock denial. He asked how he could possibly do that, claiming my hair was too well kept, and that cutting it for his wig would absolutely break my heart. Elowen just shrugged, coldly saying that since I threw away his ring, she would shave my head so they could call it even. With that, she grabbed a pair of sharp scissors from her car, walked right over, and pressed the cold metal against my scalp. Elowen hesitated for a brief second, then pulled the blades back about 3 or 4 centimeters from my actual roots. She asked Barnaby if that length was fine, but instead of answering, he just self-pityingly muttered about how long his own hair would take to grow back. Hearing those words, Elowen mercilessly hacked my hair off chunk by chunk, right from the roots, and handed it to Barnaby, who offered a shy thank you before giving me a smug, gloating look. He even mockingly thanked Mr. Vance for the hair. Staring at my chopped-up, butchered scalp, Elowen felt a sudden, suffocating pang of guilt, quickly telling Barnaby to go back while she took me to the hospital. Barnaby froze, whining if she was really going to abandon him there, which made Elowen hesitate and drop me right back onto the ground. She simply called my best friend to deal with me, then hopped in the car with Barnaby, completely abandoning me on the shore. Waking up in the hospital later, every single breath I took sent a sharp, agonizing pain through my chest. Hearing heavy sighs nearby, I turned to see my best friend standing there, looking absolutely furious. My buddy swore he wanted to rip Elowen to pieces, begging me, Sterling, to move on. I just muttered that I didn't even remember her. I spoke with a raspy voice and a forced, bitter smile, but Jiwan Ming just sighed deeply, clearly not believing me. Apparently, Elowen was finally planning to return to the powerful Thorne family. The old patriarch promised to get the world's top brain surgeon for Barnaby, but only if she agreed to come back and inherit their massive fortune. I listened silently, zoning out. Elowen was actually just an illegitimate daughter of that massive, wealthy empire. Her mother had committed suicide, and the Thorne family never cared about her existence. But when their eldest son died last year, the old man suddenly remembered his abandoned youngest daughter. Still, Elowen had completely rejected his advances. Yet here she was, swallowing her pride to crawl back. All for Barnaby. Honestly, I didn't care anymore. Sitting up to grab some water, I suddenly realized how weirdly light my head felt. I reached up, touching nothing but rough, prickly stubble. Complete panic set in. Snatching the mirror from the nightstand, my eyes went wide. My beautiful hair was entirely gone. Right then, the door swung wide open. Elowen walked straight inside, holding a cheap, pitch-black wig, and casually threw it onto my lap. She warned that if I targeted Barnaby again, she would do far worse than shave my head. My brain started buzzing wildly. Rage flooded my entire body as my head throbbed violently with pure, unadulterated anger. Then, a sharp sound echoed. I slapped Elowen right across the face, but it didn't even touch the rage inside me. I struck her again and again until my hands were completely numb. "Get out!" I screamed, my voice cracking as my eyes stung with rage. How could I have ever loved such a monstrous woman? Elowen expected me to be mad, but seeing me completely fall apart like this only sparked a weird, annoying irritation deep inside her. "Get out!" I shrieked, throwing the bedside lamp straight at her. Elowen scoffed, asking if this was really necessary since it was just hair, and would obviously grow back eventually. She sneered that I better have learned my lesson. Seriously, you have to laugh at her sheer delusion. Jiwan Ming finally snapped, grabbing her and shoving her toward the exit while shouting for her to leave. He slammed the door, shouting that Sterling never wanted to see her again, leaving the room in a heavy, painful silence. I didn't care about her anymore, but the sheer humiliation of her cutting off my hair made me want to pass out from pure rage. Did she think she could just walk all over me? I swore I would get revenge, but before I could act, word came that Barnaby had been kidnapped. They shaved his head bald, leaving his raw scalp bloody and completely mangled. The damage to his hair follicles was so severe that it might never grow back again. Just then, my car pulled up outside. Jiwan Ming got out first, laughing as he wondered what good Samaritan had pulled that off. He probably figured he looked way too pathetic to tell Elowen the truth. If he did, she would have beaten down my door for payback ages ago. My voice carried a sharp, sarcastic edge, though I barely felt any satisfaction. Honestly, just thinking about those two backstabbers completely ruined my appetite. To make matters worse, standing right there in the middle of the ballroom, was Elowen, wearing a stunning evening gown and clutching a glass of wine. She stood looking pretty impatient beside Old Master Thorne, greeting some corporate elites. Maybe she felt me staring because she turned, and our eyes locked. The very next second, I broke eye contact and headed toward the champagne tower for a drink. "Elowen, what are you staring at? Uncle Luo is trying to speak to you." Although Old Master Thorne was quite annoyed with his youngest daughter, he had to play nice. Elowen pulled her gaze away, nodding stiffly at the elder. 3 days had passed. She never expected me to actually back off and leave her alone. Even running into each other tonight, I did not crawl over to beg for her attention. Before, I would have jumped at any chance to chatter endlessly in her ear. Good. Finally, I get some peace. Look at this. A sudden, massive crash shatters the quiet behind her. The champagne tower collapsed completely, sending glass and alcohol flying everywhere. Barnaby was sprawled right in the middle of the wreckage, blood pooling on his white suit. It looked absolutely brutal. "Mr. Vance, I am begging you, please let me go. Elowen and I are only having a fake ceremony, we are not even legally married. When it is over, I will give her back, just stop targeting me. Barnaby shook like a leaf, crying tears of terror as he stared up at me. Before the entire crowd, he ripped off his wig, exposing his scarred, bloody scalp. You are a wealthy young master, you do not need to humiliate me. First, you threw away my wedding ring. Next, you shaved me bald and pushed me down. What else do you want from me? The whole room erupted. People stared and whispered that I had gone way too far. Even if you hate a guy, shaving him bald is crazy. Young Master Vance always seemed pretty friendly. Who knew he was so cruel? Barnaby is a famous prodigy with countless championship titles. He is 10 times better than that useless Vance kid. Suddenly, a figure rushed over. Elowen helped the fallen Barnaby stand. She narrowed her eyes in rage, marching directly up to my face. I am taking this chance tonight to tell you that I, Elowen Thorne, will never love you, not now, not ever. We are getting married tomorrow. If you cause trouble, I will make you pay. Following that outburst, everyone stared at me with pity or outright mockery. Getting rejected like a pathetic loser was already bad enough. That public humiliation is a total death blow. But watch this, I just flashed a fake smile. Who cares about your trashy wedding? Are you honestly the only one getting married? Elowen failed to grasp the actual meaning behind my words. None of your business, I muttered, raising an eyebrow. You survived on our family's charity for 7 whole years, and now that you are a rich heiress, you forget your roots. You truly are an ungrateful backstabber. I tossed my wine directly in Elowen's face. I only chased you before because I felt sorry for you. I do not care anymore. Go home and look in the mirror. Leaving them utterly speechless, I turned around and marched straight out of the hall. Everyone stood frozen in shock. My voice and face showed absolutely zero warmth or lingering feelings for Elowen. Elowen stood frozen on the spot, haunted by my icy, indifferent face. He is over me? Did he seriously say that out loud, or is he just playing hard to get? Elowen sneered quietly, taking Barnaby to the clinic to dress his cuts. It was almost midnight by the time she returned home. An elegant gift box sat at her door. Inside was a beautiful silk scarf. A small card fell out. She picked it up, instantly recognizing my messy handwriting, wishing her a happy birthday. This marks 7 years since we met. Good luck in your upcoming tournament. I am even trying to learn how to play Go, just to understand you better. Down below, I had sketched several colorful hearts. Elowen let out a low, knowing chuckle. She was sure I would never give up. Clearly, my strange attitude was just a trick to get her to let her guard down before I ruined her wedding. Elowen whipped out her phone, took a photo of the card, and texted me, asking if this was his way of moving on. The message failed to send. I had blocked her. A red exclamation mark flashed on Elowen's screen. I had blocked her. Cold and final. They say if you are putting on an act, you have to go all the way. He left no gaps. Elowen threw the silk scarf into the trash without a single glance. Late that night, her ringing phone shattered the silence. She picked up, but there was only dead silence. Moments later, a text from a blocked number popped up. It was a photo of Barnaby. He was bound with heavy ropes, shoved against the edge of a high rooftop. Tape covered his mouth as his legs hung over the edge, dangling 30 stories in the air with nothing to catch his fall. The text read, Miss Thorne, your fiancé is looking pretty handsome. My boys have some wild tastes, mind if they share? Her heart immediately stopped. Elowen threw on some clothes and sprinted out into the dark night. Do not touch him, she typed. She did not even have to guess who was behind this. Barnaby was too kind for enemies. He never hurt a soul. Who else would target him but me? Her phone buzzed again. Please save me quickly. Barnaby claimed Sterling hired these thugs, and that he was terrified. Elowen forced a breath, desperately trying to stay calm. Where are you? She pleaded. But the line went dead. Elowen slammed the steering wheel. Searching aimlessly was just a waste of time. She tore down the streets to my place, spotting me just as I was heading toward the front doors. While Barnaby was in deep trouble, I was just standing there. Talk about terrible timing. She wanted to stomp on the gas and crush me against the concrete. How could anyone be so incredibly cruel? Just because she rejected my confession, she thought I was framing her fiancé. She did not speed up, but she did not brake. Crash. I hit the pavement hard. Elowen stepped out of her car, staring down at me with absolute disgust. The impact was not fast enough to kill me, but it was enough to make me suffer. I gasped, feeling my body fall apart. Blinding pain flared through every nerve. My left leg was snapped, and my arm bent at a sickening, deformed angle. Why did you take Barnaby? Where is he? Elowen yanked me up by my collar, her eyes burning with pure hatred. I managed to gasp that I had no idea what she meant, but the crushing agony made my mind spin. Just then, Barnaby secretly pinged his location to her. Honestly, her next move is completely reckless. Elowen dragged my broken body across the asphalt. Without an ounce of pity, she threw me straight into the dark trunk. Arriving at the warehouse, she popped the trunk, only to find me completely unconscious, drowned in a sea of agony. Cold sweat coated my face. Telling me to stop playing dead, she yanked me out, dragging my limp body up the concrete stairs. Reaching the roof, she saw a brute pinning Barnaby down. Her eyes instantly went bloodshot with rage. "Let him go if you want to live." Elowen charged forward, kicking the man away. "Barnaby, quickly, put your clothes on." "Shh, you are safe now. Do not be afraid." She held him close, feeling his entire frame trembling like a leaf. A sudden blast of icy night wind whipped across the roof, shocking my unconscious body awake. I groggy opened my eyes to see the thugs backing off, while Barnaby wept softly in Elowen's arms, sobbing that she finally came. Barnaby shivered, looking at me with feigned terror. "Vance, do you still not get it? Even if I die, Elowen will never love you. Why are you and your sister so incredibly malicious?" I tried to speak, but the agonizing pain completely robbed me of my voice. "We are sorry." The thugs dropped to their knees, begging. One of them glanced at Barnaby before shouting out a confession. He claimed it was Cassandra Vance. She wanted payback because Barnaby ruined her brother's relationship. Cassandra Vance. Elowen gritted her teeth in absolute fury, demanding to know how much my sister had paid them. "I will triple it. Tonight, you can play around with her brother instead." She pointed right at me. "No, please." My voice shook. Elowen ignored my whimpering, pulling Barnaby up. "Tomorrow is our wedding day. If you even dare to show up, well, you probably won't get the chance anyway. These gentlemen look pretty hungry. I doubt you will have any energy left to ruin my wedding." With that, she walked away, leaving me freezing on the floor. Only the thugs and I remained on the windy rooftop. I tried to crawl away, but my body refused to cooperate. "What are you idiots waiting for? If you are too scared to touch him, I am going first." The blonde thug chuckled, unbuckling his belt as he stepped closer. "These rich kids have such soft skin, and he is way hotter than our actual client." What a total jackpot. The guy who hired us. I let out a weak, agonizing laugh inside. Of course, Barnaby staged this entire dramatic rescue just to frame me. "Stay back. Don't touch me." I kept backing away, screaming in agony. "Man, what a great body." The blonde thug reached out to rip my pants off, but someone suddenly grabbed his shoulder, warning that they definitely shouldn't touch me. Another thug peered closely at my face, muttering that I looked exactly like Aurelia Frost's first love. Hearing the name of the terrifying Frost family boss, the thugs completely froze, demanding to know how he recognized her secret lover. The thug stammered that years ago, he worked as a busboy at a bar. She left her wallet in a private room once, and he snuck a peek. And guess what? That old photo was an exact match for my face. Talk about instant, pure terror. Staring at me bleeding on the ground, they panicked, dialed 911, and bolted from the scene like their lives depended on it. Waking up the next day, I found my leg completely wrapped in a heavy cast. Honestly, my body felt like it got hit by a steamroller. I didn't dare tell Cassandra about this, knowing she'd only worry. Realizing today was the exact deadline to fulfill my marriage agreement in Ning City, I dragged my battered body and slowly limped out of the hospital. I took a cab straight to the airport and boarded my flight with some help. Once I landed in Ning City, I planned to hypnotize myself again. Every single memory of both Elowen and Barnaby had to be permanently wiped from my mind. Only then could my new life begin. Meanwhile, a soft breeze swept across the boundless ocean, where a beautiful, romantic wedding was taking place on the sand. Floral arches filled the warm air with a sweet scent, and elegantly dressed guests quietly chatted as they found their seats. Elowen poked Barnaby's cheek, asking why he looked so sad and if the surgery was worrying him. Right after the ceremony, Barnaby had to undergo a highly dangerous brain surgery. Just thinking about it made Elowen's chest tighten as she nodded. Barnaby shook his head, looking around the beach nervously. He quietly asked if she was absolutely certain Sterling wouldn't show up, making Elowen scoff. "Relax," she said. "Those thugs definitely gave Sterling a lesson he'd never forget. He's likely still passed out cold somewhere. He won't ruin this," she insisted. But Barnaby still looked worried, asking if they had gone a bit too far. "Sterling is still the Vance family's eldest heir," Barnaby pointed out. "If he seeks revenge, we'll pay." Elowen tightly squeezed his trembling hand. "I'm right here," she whispered, looking out at the ocean with a conflicted expression. To be honest, after she walked out of that abandoned building with Barnaby last night, she never truly intended to abandon me with those vicious thugs. She owed the Vance family for past favors, so she saw absolutely no reason to be completely ruthless to me. In fact, Elowen had secretly instructed her assistant to go back to the rooftop and rescue me, but when he arrived, he found the place totally deserted. Elowen figured the thugs had simply relocated me. Honestly, she couldn't be blamed for it. Standing right in the center of the beach, the host announced, "Welcome everyone to the beautiful wedding ceremony of Miss Elowen Thorne and Mr. Barnaby." Right then, Elowen overheard two nearby guests whispering as they stared at a phone, shocked that police had just uncovered a dead man at the suburban reservoir. One whispered that the naked body was severely mutilated, prompting the other to urgently ask when this horrific event had even occurred. A local fisherman had stumbled onto him last night. The body hadn't started rotting yet, and the muddy ground was covered in heavy footprints. It was definitely a group, they sighed, muttering about how rough the poor guy had it. Elowen's breath hitched. While her expression remained completely blank, her heart inexplicably started pounding like wild. You can probably guess the dark thought that hit her. No way, Elowen told herself. It couldn't be him. A chaotic spiral of thoughts clouded her mind. She didn't even notice Barnaby stepping close to gently ask what she was thinking about. He gently tugged at her dress, forcing Elowen to snap out of it. This was the dream wedding Barnaby had always wanted. She shouldn't think of irrelevant people. Next, the couple stepped forward to exchange their wedding rings. Barnaby carefully slipped a brilliant diamond ring onto Elowen's finger. The host then smiled, telling the groom he could now kiss his beautiful bride. The announcer's booming voice filled the beach, instantly followed by loud waves of applause and heartfelt blessings from their gathered guests. Staring at Barnaby's face just inches away, Elowen noticed a sweet shyness in his eyes. Honestly, despite being together for years, they had never actually kissed. They had never even formalized their relationship. This entire wedding was just her helping him fulfill a deep dream. Barnaby was pretty bashful, and Elowen was never the proactive type. She loved his pure, gentle heart. Barnaby wasn't cheap like I was, playing stupid games like pretending to be drunk just to slide into her arms. Why was she thinking of that damn man again? Elowen met Barnaby's eyes as their lips slowly drew closer. Their warm breaths mingled as they shared this intimate moment in front of the crowd. But just as their lips were about to touch, out of the corner of her eye, Elowen suddenly spotted a highly familiar silhouette. It was Sterling. She knew that shape anywhere. I had indeed arrived to completely crash her little party. Elowen whipped her head around, desperately locking her gaze onto my slender figure. Totally wrong. It was just a photographer, with a pretty similar build. Elowen's face went blank. A chaotic storm of emotions surged inside her. Elowen, Barnaby called her. She snapped out of it. Under his expectant gaze, she only planted a shallow kiss on his forehead. Barnaby froze. That warm sensation he desperately expected on his lips never came, just a cold peck on the forehead, leaving Barnaby staring at Elowen in confusion. Her face was blank, completely unreadable. Elowen quickly shook her head, whispering that nothing was wrong. She raised her wine glass to toast the guests alongside Barnaby, realizing most of these people were Elowen's old go-friends. They knew Barnaby pretty well, too. The band played a soothing, melodious tune as the wedding finally neared its end, yet Elowen still wore that incredibly heavy expression. She gave Barnaby his dream wedding, and I hadn't shown up to ruin it. This was exactly what she wanted, so why did she feel so empty? Gently, Elowen opened the car door for Barnaby, blocking the frame so he wouldn't bump his head. Once inside, they sat in silence. Dead silence. Elowen pulled out her phone and immediately began searching for the latest news about that male corpse discovered abandoned out in the quiet suburbs. Flicking the report, she saw a photo of a body under a white sheet, but a faint red mole on the ankle caught her eye. She vaguely remembered that I had a similar mole, though she couldn't quite recall if it was on my left or right foot. Just as her finger froze on the screen, Elowen read the description below, stating the deceased was actually a 30-year-old car show model. Only then did her tense, furrowed brows finally relax. You would feel relieved too, right? Barnaby spoke up, asking if he did something wrong since she had been acting pretty weird all day. Elowen whipped her head around to see his red, slightly teary eyes, her heart tightening as she pulled him into her arms. Sobbing quietly, he asked if she regretted the wedding, but Elowen quickly shook her head. She told him not to overthink things, making Barnaby smile happily through his tears. Once they arrived at the hospital, Elowen accompanied him up to the inpatient department, with the surgery officially scheduled for the morning after next. He still had a long series of pre-op tests to finish, but she gently promised that his neurosurgeon was a renowned global expert. Elowen comforted him, explaining that any risks would be minimized, before taking his test results to the doctor. The doctor admitted the situation was indeed quite complex, so Elowen kept quiet to prevent him from overthinking. Barnaby refused to take the hospital gown she handed him, looking like he wanted to say something but hesitated. Elowen asked what was wrong. Barnaby admitted he found out some shocking news. Barnaby confessed that he didn't actually have a brain tumor, and that the report belonged to someone else entirely. Hearing this, Elowen froze in disbelief. Wait, was this really just a massive misdiagnosis? This was incredibly good news, a massive false alarm, and Elowen let out a huge sigh of relief as long as he wasn't sick. Looking incredibly guilty, Barnaby explained he didn't know how to tell her because he was terrified she'd think he lied. He thanked her for finding a neurologist, apologizing for making her worry, but Elowen assured him his good health was the happiest news. Elowen stared out the window, asking if he'd still play in the upcoming league matches. Barnaby nodded happily, prompting Elowen to raise an eyebrow, and wish him good luck at the top. Barnaby smiled warmly and bumped fists with her. 5 days later at the tournament, tons of media reporters were already swarming to take photos. Waiting backstage, Elowen overheard some contestants whispering, wondering why that Barnaby guy was even showing his face there. They muttered that his matches were rigged and his actual skills were total garbage. They muttered that without his family's deep pockets, he'd be nothing, whispering that he'd been paying off his opponents for years. Before he could finish, Elowen's fist smashed into his nose, sending him to the floor, as she demanded proof for his words. She grabbed his collar tightly, poised to strike again. The backstage area instantly turned into pure chaos as staff rushed over to pull them apart. They disqualified Elowen shortly after, handing her a pretty harsh 6-month suspension. Elowen violently kicked a trash can, ignoring Barnaby as he ran over, asking why she had to be so impulsive. Barnaby hurriedly picked up her discarded badge, promising he didn't want her getting in trouble because of him. Elowen coldly told him she wanted to be alone and to focus on his own upcoming matches, walking away. Once she got back home, the very first thing Elowen saw was that beautiful silk scarf, the one I gave her, back when she entered tournaments. I always buzzed in her ear, constantly stressing she might drink bad water or eat something dirty to ruin her stomach and mess up her game. Though, she suddenly realized she had not seen me in days. Elo sat on the couch, rubbing her temples in frustration. She eventually checked the security footage near that unfinished building. The recording showed that right after she and Barnaby left, an ambulance pulled up and took me away. Those goons had not actually touched me. And now, she seriously thinks I am hiding just to play hard to get? You cannot make this up. Vance, she muttered to herself, if you have the guts, go ahead and hide forever. Let us see how long you last. Meanwhile, in Ning City, I lay on a giant hotel bed, staring blankly at the ceiling. I had been staying in Ning City for nearly 10 days, but still had not met the Frost family heiress. Right from the airport, the wealthy Frost family had sent a nice car to pick me up. Knowing my leg was hurt, they even sent a private doctor to treat me, but my fiancée still had not shown her face. This secrecy only fueled my darkest speculations. It seemed like her burn wounds had to be incredibly severe, which was why she felt too ashamed to meet. I sighed deeply. Whatever. I accepted my fate. Years ago, when enemies targeted my family, if the Frosts had not stepped in, my parents might not even have had proper bodies left to bury. So now that they wanted me to marry their daughter, I obviously had absolutely zero right to refuse. Thinking back, I pulled the pocket watch and sandalwood incense out of my bag. Elo and Barnaby, those toxic people who brought me only pain, were not worth remembering. I hypnotized myself one last time. When I woke up, my gaze was stone cold, dead calm. It felt like waking up from a long dream, forgetting certain faces and moments, and I had absolutely no desire to ever dig them back up. I did nothing at all in that hotel room for almost another week, and by then, my leg wounds had mostly healed up. I could slowly walk around now. Just then, my phone buzzed on the sheets, and I picked it up saying hello. Mr. Vance, this is Fletcher, Miss Frost's assistant. She is free to meet tonight. If that works, we will grab you downstairs to go meet her over at Repulse Bay. My heart suddenly clenched, and I went silent. Fletcher sounded surprised, asking if I was still there. If the timing is bad, no, it works. I cut in with determination. Just come get me. Got it, please head down around 7 p.m., he said, and the call ended. Slowly, my stiff body relaxed. What was I even terrified of? She was not some flesh-eating monster coming to swallow me whole. It is not like I have never seen fire injuries before. At worst, it would just be a heavy visual jolt. What was I fearing? Taking a deep breath, I started picturing a pretty scary-looking face in my head. But honestly, she must have gone through pure hell. Nobody chooses to get horribly scarred by a fire. I had to brace myself. Meeting her, I must not show any disgust or hurt her pride. Time ticked by, and the sky outside grew dark. Sitting in the back of the sleek black sedan, I kept my expression blank, staring outside. 30 minutes later, we reached our destination. Fletcher mentioned that Miss Frost was doing paperwork in her upstairs study. I nodded, doing my absolute best to look completely relaxed. I stepped inside the massive house, heading straight up the stairs to the second floor. The door on the right was slightly open, spilling a warm orange light into the hallway. I could hear her speaking quietly in fluent German. Her tone sounded soft. I lightly knocked on the wood. Miss Frost, can I come in? Instantly, the talking cut off. Seconds later, the lights inside clicked off, throwing the entire space into total blackness. A deep, steady female voice echoed, "Come on in." I grumbled inside. Why did she suddenly cut the lights? If you were in my shoes, you would be shaking too. Hello, I am Sterling Vance, your fiancé. Standing right in the middle of the study, the near-total darkness meant I could only barely trace the outline of her body. From behind, she looked slender, standing around 1.7 meters tall with her back turned completely toward me. Her silky, dark hair, fell past her shoulders with wavy curls, and her rolled-up sleeves showed a glimpse of incredibly fair skin. "I know exactly who you are," she spoke quietly. "You must be Aurelia Frost, right?" I asked, slowly walking closer. "Are you planning to keep your back turned to me forever?" The air in the room suddenly went completely cold. Honestly, before arriving, I searched all over the web for any pictures of Aurelia Frost, but there was absolutely nothing online. Just judging by her silhouette, she had a really gorgeous figure and a beautiful voice. It was a tragedy that the fire ruined her face. With 90% of her body severely burned, she likely barely had any healthy skin left. I crept a few inches closer, and as my gaze locked onto her bare arm, I realized there was not a single scar. It made sense. Who would actually show off their burn scars? Since she was hiding away like this, maybe her face had the most severe injuries of all. I asked if she wanted to turn around and see what her future husband actually looked like. I wasn't nearly as nervous as when I first stepped inside, but then she told me if I didn't want this arranged marriage, I could walk away right now. She said she hadn't called me here to discuss marriage. Aurelia's voice was completely flat, without any emotion. My eyes widened. Was she really serious about that? I asked if walking out that door right then meant I didn't have to marry her. Aurelia just gave a quiet, simple nod and said of course. She explained she never forced anyone into anything, and would tell her parents the issue was entirely on her end, so it wouldn't involve me at all. Hearing her take all the blame herself gave me a surprisingly good first impression of her. There was no pressure, no aggressive demands. She was actually talking to me, giving me a way out. This was completely unexpected. Confused, I asked her why she made me travel all the way to Ning City in the first place if that was the case. Did she want me to go or stay? As I spoke, I noticed her clenched fists tighten just a bit in the dim light. In a low voice, Aurelia said she respected my decision. I just muttered a quick response, telling her that I was heading out then. But even though those words came out of my mouth, my feet wouldn't move. Call it crazy, but Aurelia's voice sounded incredibly familiar, as if I'd definitely heard her speak somewhere before. Yet no matter how deep I dug into my memories for any sign of Aurelia Frost, I found absolutely nothing. Realizing I wasn't walking away, Aurelia asked why I was still standing there. I laughed, telling her I was just teasing. Since my Vance family owed her family a massive debt of gratitude, we had to repay it. With that, I took a step forward. And right then, I noticed Aurelia was actually wearing a mask over her face. She gently grabbed my wrist and whispered that she was too ugly, saying she was afraid she'd terrify me. I stood there with my mouth open, completely speechless. Through the gaps in the mask, our eyes locked together. Her gaze was incredibly deep, but looking at me, her eyes softened. She said she knew I already liked someone, so she refused to force me. Aurelia's voice carried a clear, aching trace of hidden loneliness. She offered me 3 days to decide if I truly wanted this marriage, leaving the option to back out open. But wait, someone I liked? I was so confused. I didn't even know who I had feelings for. How did Aurelia know? Was she secretly watching me this whole time? Was this some elaborate, pre-planned scheme? Aurelia didn't push the topic, telling me I could just sleep in the guest room for now. She said everything was ready. I nodded, agreeing, but made it clear right then that there was absolutely no one else in my heart. Hearing that, Aurelia froze in place. How could that be? She knew he had always loved the Go Prodigy, his family sponsored. Yet knowing my character, she realized I had no reason to make up a lie about it. I insisted I was telling the absolute truth. With that, I walked out of her study. The nanny guided me over to a guest room, which turned out to be incredibly cozy. Inside the closet, the suits and shirts were tailored exactly to my size. Even the shoes fit me perfectly. It felt entirely custom-made for me. There were even posters of my absolute favorite band hanging on the wall. I couldn't help but suspect Aurelia actually had a major secret crush on me, but hid her feelings because of her facial burns. At 2 a.m., I threw off the heavy covers and slipped out of bed, quietly creeping over to her bedroom door. By now, she had to be fast asleep. Slowly, I pushed the door open. And there she was, completely knocked out. The bedroom was pitch black, saved only by a thin stream of pale moonlight. I crept toward her bedside as quietly as a cat. I squeezed my eyes shut, then slowly blinked them open. What if her face was truly terrifying? What if I couldn't handle how bad it was? I slowly blinked, my eyelashes trembling as my vision finally focused. Watch closely, now this is it. Her face finally came into view. My jaw instantly hit the floor. Terrified that I might scream out loud, I slammed my hand over my mouth. Aurelia's features were incredibly sharp and gorgeous. Her eyelashes were remarkably long. Most shocking of all, her skin was flawlessly smooth. There wasn't a single burn scar anywhere. I blinked hard, wondering if I was dreaming. Seriously, why would she hide like this and refuse to show her face if she wasn't actually burned? I slowly reached out, letting my fingertips brush against her cheek. I gave a soft squeeze before quickly pulling my hand back. It was definitely real human skin, not some fake synthetic leather material. Hearing her breathe softly, I felt so relieved that I hadn't woken her up. I pulled out my phone, dimmed the screen all the way, and shined it on her face. That dim, glowing light was more than enough to capture every single detail. I spotted a tiny, shallow scar on Aurelia's forehead, maybe 5 or 6 centimeters long. Unless you stared closely, you'd miss it completely. This injury wasn't bad at all, so what made her feel so incredibly insecure? I didn't even dare to breathe too loudly. One last deep look at Aurelia's gorgeous face. I turned and walked out. The door softly clicked shut. On the bed, the woman who seemed fast asleep suddenly twitched her long eyelashes, wide awake in an instant. Opening her eyes, Aurelia stared into the dark, her cheeks still tingling with the memory of those cold fingertips. Giggling softly, she closed her eyes again. The next morning, I did not wake up until 8 a.m. Heading downstairs, a massive, fancy breakfast spread was waiting for me. "Good morning, Mr. Vance," the nanny said, offering cutlery. Miss Frost already left. She respectfully set the plate right in front of me. I thanked her and took a sip of coffee, tasting absolutely nothing. My mind was completely stuck on Aurelia's face from last night. Slipping out of her room left me tossing and turning, completely unable to sleep. I have seen plenty of gorgeous women, but Aurelia is on another level. Honestly, a massive wave of relief washed over me. Thank goodness she did not have any burn scars. That would be a tragedy. But why would Aurelia keep this a secret? I spent the rest of the day aimlessly pacing around the massive villa with absolutely nothing to do. Even after a late shower, Aurelia was nowhere to be found. Was she actively hiding from me? Around 3 a.m., I woke up, needed the restroom. Back in bed, I kept tossing and turning until my eyes suddenly snapped wide open in the dark. Wait for it, a wild theory hits me. Could her burn scars actually be hidden on her body? Tiptoeing to her bedside, I took another moment to admire her stunning face before slowly pulling back the blanket. Beneath the incredibly thin covers, she was wearing a delicate, light pink nightgown. If she really had 90% burns, they would be everywhere. But her slightly rumpled gown revealed only smooth, flawless skin on her stomach. Where were the scars? I actually poked her skin just to make sure she was not wearing some high-tech silicone mask, and just as I prepare to peek further down, boom. Out of nowhere, an icy grip clamps onto my wrist, making me scream and fumble my phone onto the floor. Looking up, I met Aurelia's cold stare in the dark. My brain completely froze. Blue screen of death. Getting caught red-handed doing something this incredibly creepy was pure, unadulterated embarrassment. Could I pull off the sleepwalking excuse? Aurelia narrowed her eyes, asking if I was inspecting the goods and if I was satisfied. My face burned. Creeping into a girl's room at night, I seriously wanted the floor to open up and swallow me. Was I satisfied? Extremely? I offered an awkward laugh, slowly trying to retrieve my hand. Apologizing, I told her to get some sleep and tried to bolt, but Aurelia's grip tightened, stopping me in my tracks. "Since you have seen my face," she teased, "you have to go through with our marriage." Her voice sounded highly amused. Seeing my blank face, she smiled, but her tone quickly turned quite disappointed. She asked if I truly did not remember her. Did we know each other? Her question left me completely speechless. Did I block out my own memories? We met 8 years ago at the Soya Grand Hotel. Aurelia quietly recalled how a massive fire broke out there and spread incredibly fast. While escaping, she spotted me passed out right in front of a hotel room door. People were stampeding in absolute panic. With elevators dead, everyone bottlenecked at the main exit in a blind panic, so she had to drag my unconscious body through a different escape route. Midway out, I woke up. I refused to tell her my name, but I actually reached out to wipe sweat from her brow. I had inhaled far too much thick smoke, making me black out again, almost immediately. She hauled my dead weight to an escape window, spotted a firefighter ladder, and managed to push me onto it. I froze. No memory. My brain had absolutely no recollection of this ever happening. Yet, her story felt strangely familiar. I really did survive a terrifying hotel fire 8 years ago. Later, reading that massive hotel death toll gave me cold sweats for days, but I never once realized my survival was because someone actually saved me. How did she escape? And why did the rumors say her entire body was covered in severe burns? I asked, completely confused, yet incredibly grateful. Thank God she was not disfigured, or I would have drowned in guilt. She explained that the ladder had a strict weight limit. She barely made it out alive. Though she skipped the details, I could easily picture her dodging, falling debris, and racing the Grim Reaper. I kept thanking her, my heart swelling with a chaotic storm of raw emotion. My savior. Suddenly, Aurelia pulled back her right sleeve. Sure enough, there was a faint patch of burn scars right there, though the color had faded. She called it her medal for saving his life. Hearing her say that made Sterling's chest tighten. How could a complete stranger be so willing to risk her life just to save his? And through all those years, she kept it secret. He asked if she did it because she liked him. A heavy silence settled over the bedroom, broken only by the quiet rustle of the wind blowing through the leaves outside. Love at first sight, followed by a long, careful plan. Aurelia smiled gently as she spoke. She admitted she leaked those rumors on purpose because her grandfather's massive business empire had too many greedy eyes on it. It made sense. She threw up a smokescreen to make her greedy relatives think she was disfigured and completely unmotivated. They thought she lacked the ability to handle such a massive family business. Aurelia didn't deny it. But Sterling still wondered why she claimed she was ugly when they first met. He jokingly asked if she just didn't trust him. She laughed, explaining she wanted to lower his expectations first to make the reveal even sweeter. That way, she hoped he would find her more interesting. Realizing he was playing right into her hands, he felt both annoyed and amused. He had to admit that her goals were achieved, and he felt a real spark. Think about it, a gorgeous heiress who falls for you at first sight and even saves your life? She was truly one in a million, and just thinking about it made his chest tighten with a strange warmth. His heart raced. Aurelia told him to sleep, asking if he would accompany her to a big auction the next night. He nodded, getting up to leave. Aurelia looked thrilled as she asked if their marriage contract was officially on. He felt his cheeks heating up as he told her she could introduce him as her fiancé tomorrow if anyone asked. The next morning, warm sunlight filled the house. He headed downstairs, assuming Aurelia had already left for work. To his surprise, she was still there, reading a magazine on the sofa. The moment she heard him, she looked up and locked eyes with him. After 2 days of only seeing her in the shadows, this felt like their first actual meeting in broad daylight. She had the commanding aura of a true leader, but her gaze was incredibly soft and warm. She wished him a good morning as they sat down at the table together. He couldn't help but feel a bit dazed. Only 48 hours ago, she was a complete stranger. Now, she was suddenly the woman he was going to spend his life with. Once they finished eating, Aurelia drove him to her family's old estate to meet her relatives. He braced himself to be incredibly nervous, but then he heard how Aurelia introduced him to her family. She proudly told them he was the man she had loved for a long time and wanted to grow old with. His throat went dry. It turned out someone had been quietly loving him all this time. As evening approached, they pulled up to a styling salon. The stylist dressed him in a sharp dark blue suit, while Aurelia wore a stunning gown that matched his tie to a T. During the drive, she passed him the event catalog, telling him to take a look and pick out whatever caught his eye. He really didn't need anything, but he understood she was just trying to show her affection and close the distance between them. He pointed out a mechanical watch in the book. Aurelia instantly asked if there was anything else he wanted. Sterling simply shook his head. 10 minutes later, their car arrived at the hotel. Aurelia grabbed his hand, and they stepped into the grand banquet hall together. Clinking glasses and low chatter filled the entire venue. Wealthy guests were already mingling with champagne. Suddenly, a voice called out, remarking how rare it was to see Boss Frost here. A young man in a suit approached to shake her hand, saying it was great to see her, before shifting his eyes to Sterling. When he asked about him, Aurelia smiled and introduced him as her fiancé, Sterling Vance. The man gasped, calling him his future brother-in-law. He raised his glass to offer a toast, downing it in one go. Sterling smiled back and took a polite sip from his. A crowd quickly gathered to greet them. Aurelia almost never showed up at public events like this. She typically just sent her assistant with a set budget, but tonight was a completely different story. She wanted everyone in high society to know she was taken. Suddenly, the announcer called for everyone to take their seats. As the crowd began sitting down, Aurelia and Sterling made their way to their assigned table. But right then, they both felt a sharp glare lock onto them. Sterling looked over at a nearby woman, completely confused by her angry look. Aurelia leaned in, asking if he knew her. He gave her a blank look, asking if he should. Aurelia seemed surprised, but she masked it instantly. Smiling faintly, she said it was nothing. She sat her bag down, then cast a sharp, knowing look back at Elo Thorne, who was standing right behind them. The gazes of both women instantly locked in midair. Elowen stared in total disbelief, her thoughts spinning fast before her lips twisted into a cold, mocking smirk. Has Sterling Vance completely run out of ways to get my attention? She wondered, even hiring someone just to trigger me? Does he seriously think this pathetic stunt will work, when he does not even care about her? Where does he get the nerve? To Elowen, it was just sad. Hey Elowen, this watch looks incredibly high-end, Barnaby noted, scanning the auction catalog. She took a quick look and offered to buy it for him, but he immediately started waving his hands. He insisted it was far too pricey, but Elowen did not care at all. She told him to view it as a championship gift, leaving Barnaby looking incredibly touched as he thanked her. Before long, the room lights dimmed down to spotlight the stage. The early bidding rounds featured a pretty wild mix of stuff. We are talking prime real estate from failed firms, ancient dynasty jade, and flawless emerald bracelets. Yet none of these items caught Aurelia's eye until that exact mechanical watch was finally brought up. The starting bid is $1 million, the host called out, prompting a few eager paddles to go up immediately. It quickly jumped to 3 million. Going once at 3 million, the host called. Any other bids? Suddenly, 10 million. A clear female voice rang out, instantly capturing everyone's attention. See, normal bidders only went up by a few 100,000 at most, but dropping a massive number like that proved she was absolutely done playing games and wanted to end it right then. The whole crowd turned to stare at Elowen, whispering in awe. Spotted with a handsome guy beside her, people assumed she was buying it for him. 10 million going once, the host shouted. But just when you think the bidding is over, watch Aurelia Frost casually make her move from the front row. She quietly signals to light the sky lantern, meaning she will automatically top any bid, no matter how insanely high. The entire room goes absolutely wild. It is just a watch, and 10 million was already a massive overpay. She really triggered the ultimate bid for this thing. I seriously could not keep my cool. Leaning right into her ear, I whispered if we could return it, begging her to let someone else take this over-budget watch. I warned her the price was crazy, but Aurelia just shrugged and said my happiness was all that mattered. She added that it would look incredible on my wrist, leaving me totally speechless. While I am practically having a stroke over the cost, she is busy planning out my daily outfit coordination. Since I said I liked it, she was never going to lose. Besides, she reminded me we are getting legally married soon. Our funds will be shared anyway, so she jokingly called this her very last unauthorized purchase before the wedding. She spoke with this gentle, negotiating tone that sent a sudden rush of warmth straight through my chest. Honestly, I was totally speechless. Looking at her beautiful face while she spoke such soft, determined words was intense. How could anyone resist that? I quietly thanked her and quickly looked away, too flustered to keep eye contact. Noticing my red cheeks, she giggled and called me cute, making me awkwardly cough and remind her we had an audience. 2 rows behind us, Elowen sat with a dark, furious expression, staring daggers right into my back in complete disbelief. You can literally feel the tension as every little interaction between us looks so incredibly intimate and teasing. It was as if we had completely shut out the entire crowd, living in our own private little world. But what really broke Elowen was seeing this random wealthy woman activate the sky lantern just for a watch. I knew she was there tonight, yet I acted totally blind to her presence just to mess with her head. She probably thought I let Aurelia outbid her $10 million price tag just to get some kind of reaction from her. The host congratulated Miss Aurelia Frost for officially winning the luxury mechanical watch. Playing the playful, slightly gossipy host, he teasingly asked if the watch was meant for the lucky gentleman beside her. Aurelia proudly confirmed it was a gift for her fiancé, Sterling Vance, sending a wave of burning stares straight at my back. She was honestly using every single moment to broadcast that I was officially taken. It was pretty childish, but I couldn't help smiling as the host chuckled at the sweet future husband gift. The auctioneer offered his warmest congratulations, wishing us an incredibly happy life and a beautiful family ahead. As the crowd clapped, Elowen frowned deeply, her mind completely reeling over that single word, fiancé. Since when was he taken, and how did she not know? Even Barnaby sat there speechless, wondering how I got engaged. He glanced up at Elowen. Honestly, the sheer malice on her face terrified him. She glared at my back like she wanted to shred me. Meanwhile, I was totally oblivious, happily laughing with Aurelia Frost. We smiled gently. To everyone else, we looked like a deeply happy couple drowned in love. When did Sterling Vance get engaged? Barnaby muttered. Elowen, is he just putting on a show for us? Just to trigger you because we are getting married? A cold, quiet chuckle escaped Elowen's throat. What else could it be? After disappearing for 2 weeks, I suddenly show up engaged to another woman. No way that is a coincidence. Before this, I followed her around like a loyal dog every single day. I chased her for 7 years. A human heart simply does not change that fast. I did this on purpose. As the auction wound down, Elowen noticed me stand up, whisper to Aurelia, and head for the exit. She sat in silence. Then, she quietly slipped out of the hall too. Elowen waited in the corridor. She watched me leave the restroom, and I walked straight toward her, keeping my cool. Just the two of us. Our eyes locked, but my gaze held absolutely no warmth or emotion at all. I kept walking, closing the distance. Just when she expected me to stop, get this, I brushed right past her with total indifference. Aren't you tired of playing games? Elowen finally snapped. Grabbing my wrist, she demanded to know how long I would keep acting. I was completely baffled. I stared blankly at my gripped wrist, slowly looking up to meet her furious eyes. Stop trying so hard to force your way into my sight. Elowen breathed deeply, struggling to control her anger. How dramatic can you get? You are incredibly desperate, faking a whole engagement stunt just for attention. But I simply asked, do we even know each other? I have absolutely no clue what you mean. The entire situation felt completely absurd to me. I yanked my hand back and turned to leave. Elowen spat out, calling me a clown, playing games in front of her her eyes flashing with ice. The harder you act to provoke me, the more comical it is. Faking a marriage? I stared at Elowen like she belonged in a mental ward, asking if she was sexually harassing me. She was almost amused. Sterling Vance, what is your game? Have you forgotten who pretended to be drunk just to crash into my arms? My body went stiff. How does she know my name? Who exactly is this woman? I stared at her, completely blank and unable to remember who she was. Elowen frowned deeply. She searched my face, scanning for any micro-expression that would expose a lie. Finding none, her heart skipped a beat. Was it amnesia? How could he not remember her? She scoffed, calling it a pretty clumsy trick to get her attention. Stop wasting your breath. The only person I actually care about is Barnaby. I will never have even a tiny bit of affection for you, now or ever. Stop daydreaming, and do not bother bringing some random girl to play pretend. Put on a show? I scanned her up and down. Who do you think you are? Why would I waste energy on you? Can you stop being so delusional? I have a fiancé who is prettier, taller, and way sweeter and more caring than you. Am I blind? Why would I toss her aside just to like you? Elowen stood speechless. All her annoyance instantly vanished, replaced by an intense stare, as if she was studying a total stranger for the very first time. He was clearly the exact same guy. So why did she feel like something deep down had completely shifted? She simply could not explain it. And here is the absolute kicker searching my eyes. She found zero devotion. The harsh truth finally hit her. I did not look at her with love anymore. Back then, my gaze was always intensely passionate, carrying a very sweet, soft shyness. But now, my eyes held only a freezing coldness and a deep, defensive suspicion. Just then, a sweet voice called my name from behind. Aurelia walked up, wrapping her arm around mine in a highly possessive way. I was so worried about you. I smiled and said I was fine, just ran into a complete psycho. Giving Elowen one last cold glare, I walked away with Aurelia. Elowen stood completely frozen in place, like a stone statue. She watched us walk side by side, feeling a crushing weight in her chest that made it hard to breathe. Was this really the same man who used to revolve around her every single day? How could I hold another woman so closely while acting like she did not even exist? Elowen just could not understand it. Back in the auction hall, she had no idea what went wrong, but everyone was crowded around the very center. Even the venue staff had rushed over. Elowen immediately spotted Barnaby in the middle, his face covered in tears as his shoulders shook violently. Aurelia stood tall right in front of me, shielding me as a sudden wave of hot anger flared up inside. Elowen rushed through the crowd to stand beside Barnaby, asking what on earth happened. Before he could even say a word, she glared at the crowd, her sharp eyes finally locking onto Aurelia and me, as Barnaby sniffled. He whined that the emerald cufflink she gave him was taken by Mr. Vance, avoiding the word steal, but making his point crystal clear. Slander carries serious legal consequences, Aurelia warned. Her face was totally composed, but her eyes burned with absolute fury. Barnaby slowly explained that the emerald was left by Elowen's mother before she died, meant specifically to be passed down to her future son-in-law. Back when Mr. Vance was chasing Elowen, he repeatedly begged for it but got rejected, Barnaby added. Elowen stared at the green cufflink in the hotel staff's hands, her eyes turning incredibly sharp. In the past, when I found out how much this heirloom actually meant, I had constantly badgered her for it, shamelessly boasting that I would get my hands on it eventually, leaving Elowen wondering where I got that crazy confidence. It was for her future husband, so it had absolutely nothing to do with me. That's why she gave it to Barnaby right after their wedding. She assumed I saw Barnaby wearing it tonight and got greedy. But wait, you've been wearing this item the entire evening. If I actually swiped it, wouldn't you have noticed? Can people really just throw around lies whenever they feel like it? I took a step forward, trying desperately to keep my cool, but the sheer fury was making me dizzy. Barnaby retorted that he had it on all night, but claimed my eyes kept lingering on his cufflink as people were leaving. Knowing my history, he claimed he had no choice but to put it in his bag, speaking in a very calm, measured tone. He explained that the crowd was packed tightly together during the exit, and that I had accidentally bumped right into him. Next thing he knew, the heirloom was completely gone, only to suddenly show up inside my own bag. I squeezed my fists tight, fighting every urge to walk up and slap him across the face. Right at that moment, a security guard stepped forward with video footage from the banquet hall. On the screen, you could see guests slowly making their way out. The crowd was packed like sardines, with Barnaby standing out clearly in his sharp, smoky gray suit. Right behind him were Aurelia and me. Suddenly, someone behind me shoved forward, making me lose my footing and stumble right into Barnaby. They paused the video and guys, look at this exact moment. Because of the high-angle shot, you can only clearly see that I was shoved, which quickly closed the gap between Barnaby and me. But as for whether I grabbed the chance to slip my hand into his bag and steal the jewelry, the camera just couldn't show it. It made proving my innocence so much harder. Aurelia chimed in. saying this only proves her fiancé bumped into him. In just 2 short seconds, how could he possibly fish a tiny cufflink out of your bag? Aurelia's brow furrowed deeply, and the entire room felt like it dropped below freezing. Barnaby sneered, warning her that her fiancé used to relentlessly pester Elowen because he's wanted this cufflink for years. Seeing me wear it probably drove him absolutely insane with jealousy, Barnaby snorted. If he didn't steal it, why did it land in his bag right after bumping me? Just like that, every single eye in the room locked onto me. Honestly, someone rich enough to light the legendary sky lantern would have no reason to steal a simple cufflink. Someone whispered that he looked incredibly familiar, wondering if he was the eldest son of the wealthy Vance family from Jiang City. What is he even doing here in Ning City? Suddenly, other people started remembering him too. They gossiped that he used his family's financial leverage to force Elowen to be with him, even pushing her fiancé into a champagne tower at the last party. How did a powerhouse like Aurelia Frost even fall for a guy like him? The crowd gossiped loudly. Elowen walked right up to me, eyes filled with utter disgust, mocking me for pretending not to know her while secretly stealing the precious heirloom her late mother left behind. I didn't steal it, I said, keeping my voice rock solid. Aurelia squeezed my hand tightly, and with total authority, she declared that this hall has more than just one camera. She demanded they check every single camera angle immediately to clear her fiancé's name. Right on cue, a man walked over holding up his phone, explaining that he had been taking a casual video for social media as everyone was leaving. He had accidentally caught the bottom left corner of the exact moment the two of us collided. It clearly caught someone's hand planting the cufflink into my bag. Talk about a twist. The whole room went completely silent. Aurelia's assistant quickly grabbed the phone and projected the video straight onto the venue's massive screen. Every single eye in the room was glued to the screen as the footage of the exiting crowd began to play, with the background audio murmuring. Normal folks can't compete here. So many wealthy elites crashed the party tonight. It was supposed to be a simple, boring vlog. But the camera's bottom left corner caught the exact moment Barnaby and I bumped into each other. Because of the angle, it perfectly captured a hand in a smoky gray sleeve stealthily reaching right into another guest's bag. The clip paused. Everyone's eyes darted back and forth between Barnaby and me. Barnaby was wearing that exact smoky gray suit, matching the hand in the video. Unbelievable, he staged and acted this entire drama himself. He secretly hid his own cufflink in some other guest's bag, just so he could turn around and accuse them. That is incredibly low. If not for this video, no amount of explaining would have ever cleared my name. Did he honestly think he was safe because of a camera blind spot? No wonder he was so confident, accusing me of stealing his stuff. How can someone be this scheming? Is it even possible to react that quickly? The moment someone bumps into him, he instantly decides to frame them. Or maybe he planned this all night and just waited for his chance. And just like that, the tables turned at light speed. Barnaby's face went completely pale. He stared at the frozen screen in utter shock, his mind spinning. This was definitely not part of his plan. It was such a hidden angle. How did anyone actually manage to catch it? The mocking stares and laughter of the crowd felt like icy needles. He felt completely exposed and utterly humiliated in public. Aurelia walked up to the person who recorded the video, thanking them sincerely for clearing her fiancé's name. She promised that the Frost Group would fully support any of their future business ventures. Then she turned to Barnaby, demanding an apology. After all, taking this to court would end the same way. By now, several people had their phones out, filming Barnaby. Forcing him to confess publicly was the absolute perfect punishment. Stop it, Elowen hissed. She pulled Barnaby behind her, blocking the cameras, and threw the emerald cufflink right at my feet. Didn't you always want this? Fine, you can have it. Just stop drooling over it like a desperate dog from now on. The careless way Elowen tossed it was like throwing a bone to a stray. Looking down at the bracelet at my feet, I kicked it right back. Who cares about this garbage? I stepped closer, forcing Barnaby's tear-stained face to look at me. You haven't apologized to me yet. Before anyone could stop her, Elowen stepped in and forcefully shoved me away. Compared to how you treated Barnaby, this is nothing. Did you lose a single hair or even get a scratch? Aurelia caught me before I fell, her blood boiling with absolute rage. Fighting to control her anger, she told Barnaby that if he did not apologize tonight, they would let the police handle it. Barnaby's lips trembled. He muttered an apology, saying he was sorry, but compared to me throwing his diamond ring into the river, pushing him into the champagne tower when he was not looking, and hiring thugs to kidnap him, what did his actions tonight even matter? Was he not allowed to defend himself against my constant attacks? I had absolutely no idea why he was targeting me. Seriously, I had zero memory of any of those wild accusations. Elowen sneered that she wanted to see how much longer I could play dumb, then dragged Barnaby away. Sitting in the car, Barnaby was still crying pitifully. He expected Elowen to comfort him, but she just stared blankly out the window, completely ignoring him. Just outside, Aurelia had her arm linked in mine as we walked away together. Seeing us, The veins on Elowen's forehead bulged as her knuckles turned white. Barnaby weakly asked if he did something wrong today. His voice sounded completely broken. He cried that he did not want to be a bad person, but thinking about what I did to him made him desperate to retaliate. Elowen secretly found his weeping incredibly grating, but she patiently told him not to blame himself, asking him to just talk to her first in the future. Barnaby nodded, then smiled and asked if it was too late to answer her previous proposal to be her boyfriend. Even though they already had a wedding ceremony, it was actually just a quick formality ahead of his high-risk surgery. Their relationship was never officially official. Elowen was a bit startled. It was true that she had confessed her feelings to him a long time ago, but now that the moment had finally arrived, she felt absolutely no joy. Instead, her head was entirely filled with images of me being close with another woman. "I am willing," Barnaby whispered, his voice incredibly soft, as he agreed to finally be her boyfriend. Elowen forced a faint smile. Immediately, Barnaby leaned in to kiss her lips, leaving her completely stunned by the sudden move. Her body went stiff as she let him kiss her. Honestly, she had no idea when she even started caring about him. Whenever Elowen thought of him, all she could recall was his dead serious expression while placing a single go piece. Back then, he was like a lone moon in the dark sky, completely cold and distant. Elowen admitted she used to have feelings for Barnaby, but going further, she never really planned on that. Even now, with their lips pressed together, she felt absolutely nothing. No spark at all. Barnaby clearly sensed her total apathy, his eyes filling with deep, sudden hurt. "Was I too forward? I am sorry." He quickly pulled back, but the very next second, Elowen wrapped her arm around his waist. She kissed him back, a quick response before the car finally pulled up to his apartment building. Elowen headed straight back home. She had urgent family business to handle. Old Master Thorn fully intended to groom her as his successor, so the constant trials he threw her way were incredibly heavy. To Elowen's utter shock, because of last night's auction disaster, Thorn Group's stock plummeted straight to its limit down. Their upcoming wedding was supposed to be a pure formality, but the public already saw him as the Thorn family's official son-in-law. Every single thing Barnaby did directly tarnished their reputation. "Elowen, you need to break it off with that man immediately. I will absolutely not allow a guy like that to step foot inside our home," Old Master Thorn roared, his voice shaking with pure rage. "It is a misunderstanding." Beyond annoyed, Elowen hung up. But get this, just as she started planning her crisis PR, the entire internet exploded with news that the Genius Go prodigy was fixing matches. Clicking the link, the face in those photos was unmistakably Barnaby. Several professional Go players came forward, proving Barnaby paid them off during tournaments just to build up his fake genius persona and gain massive attention. All to sell a lie. The leaked evidence showed bank transfer receipts and even secret hand signals he used during tournaments to direct his opponent's moves. Normally, the general public does not even care about Go. But since Barnaby had heavily marketed himself as this super handsome, genius prodigy, he had gathered almost 1 million followers. Overnight, the scandal blew up, and the online comments were brutally sharp. One amateur player commented that watching his games always felt off, wondering how he could possibly win so effortlessly. Another person noted his family is actually pretty loaded, making it easy for him to buy his way to the top. The bribe money was probably way higher than the actual prize pool. People were devastated, having believed he was a rare talent with both looks and brains. No one realized it was all a lie, and fans were already demanding a permanent lifetime ban. Or maybe, with his real skill level, he would never even qualify for a real match anyway. Elowen's face grew incredibly tense. She stared at her screen, completely speechless. Then, she suddenly remembered someone whispering about Barnaby match-fixing during the last tournament. How could this actually be true? Yet, the solid proof was staring her right in the face. She wanted to deny it, but she couldn't even convince herself. Part of her still refused to believe the sweet, pure Barnaby would do this. She absolutely needed to hear him deny these rumors herself. Jumping into her car, Elowen raced straight to Barnaby's house. The second she reached his front door, a violent crash echoed from inside, sounding exactly like a heavy chair smashing against the floor. "Those ungrateful, backstabbing cowards took my money so fast, and now they dare to turn on me," Barnaby's voice snarled from inside. Talk about a reality check. Hearing those words, Elowen felt her entire body freeze. He was openly admitting to the fraud. "Barnaby, did you somehow offend someone at the auction last night? Otherwise, why would all these players report you at the exact same time?" His mother's voice trembled with tears, warning him that Elowen would definitely find out about this whole mess soon. "You have to figure out a way to explain this to her." "Explain? What is there left to even explain?" Barnaby spat. He practically gnashed his teeth, complaining that she had been acting like a total zombie lately, when before she would be thrilled for days over one sentence. Now, when he tried to kiss her, she just stood there like a lifeless block of wood, thinking of someone else. If she hadn't agreed to return to the Thorne family as their wealthy heiress, he would never have gone through the trouble of faking a surgery just to keep her. A charity case sponsored by the Vance family actually thought she was good enough to be with him. Calm down, she is the official heir now, so stop throwing tantrums, his mother sighed heavily. Right now, she was just terrified he had crossed the wrong person, specifically Sterling Vance's powerful fiancé. Barnaby spat back with bitter resentment, claiming she was not some all-knowing god who could discover he hired thugs to frame Sterling. Honestly, he figured he might as well go seduce Aurelia Frost, whose massive wealth put Elowin's to shame. Elowin was currently nothing but a broke figurehead who could not even afford to buy him a decent mechanical watch. He planned to seize everything eventually, but outside the locked door, anger rushed straight to Elowin's head, her temples throbbing with absolute rage. She felt like nothing around her was real. How could the incredibly kind Barnaby suddenly turn into a man with a heart as toxic as a venomous snake? Approaching her was just for profit, while framing Sterling for those terrible things she thought he did. In reality, Barnaby was just twisting the truth. Suddenly crash! Elowin kicked the door wide open. She stared coldly at the stunned mother and son. Did they find it fun to play her like a complete fool? A dead silence filled the room as they stared in absolute shock at Elowin standing in the doorway. The color completely drained from Barnaby's face as he stuttered out why she was here. Shut up, Elowin barked, slapping him hard. His face whipped to the side and he fell to his knees with a heavy thud, begging Elowin and admitting he was wrong to lie. He wept instantly, swearing his love was real. Elowin was totally disgusted that he actually had the nerve to say that. Elowin felt she must have been completely blind to let Barnaby trick her for so long. His mother quickly piped up, saying his heart was not bad. She insisted he just wanted to be together. But Elowin scoffed, did he want her, or was he just after her money? They were absolutely shameless. Elowin glared at Barnaby, stating she never expected him to be such a pathetic, deceitful snake. She felt deeply grateful those hired thugs failed to hurt Sterling. Otherwise, she would have carried that heavy guilt forever. But look closely at this. Barnaby suddenly grabs her from behind. Sobbing with a breaking voice, he begged Elowin not to go, admitting his lies but swearing he truly fell in love with her during their time together. Elowin pried his hands off and shoved him away. Just get lost. She warned him never to show his face again before storming out. In her car, Elowin lit a cigarette to calm down. Recalling her awful behavior towards Sterling, she felt massive regret. He had genuinely loved her for who she was. It had been that way for years. Sterling never had any bad intentions, yet she was so easily blinded by Barnaby's pathetic lies. Thump, thump, thump. Elowin violently slammed her fists hard against the steering wheel. If she could turn back time, she would choose Sterling without a single doubt. Remembering how she brutally ran him over, Elowin slapped her own face. She had always been proud of being so sharp and logical, yet she got completely played by a con man, almost causing an absolute tragedy. If Sterling had actually died, she could never live with herself. Just then, her phone buzzed with an invite to go drinking. At the bar, her friends looked at her with pity, mentioning they already saw all the online news about Barnaby. They told her not to be sad over some guy, joking that everyone gets played eventually and it was no big deal. Instead of Barnaby, they suggested she accept Sterling Vance's confession, since his looks and body are miles better anyway. Someone joked about Sterling still being a pure virgin. Suddenly smash! A heavy beer bottle shattered right over her head. As blood and alcohol dripped down, Elowin spat at her not to dare use her dirty mouth to talk about Sterling. Elowin was absolutely seeing red, grabbing the girl by her collar and pulling her fist back to hit her again. The others jumped in to stop the fight, telling her not to ruin the vibe over some guy, while the bleeding girl began screaming curses. She screamed at Elowin, asking what kind of holy saint she was trying to be. Did she not completely despise Sterling Vance before? She was just talking, so why the rage unless Elowin actually fell in love with him? Elowin froze up. Falling in love with Sterling? No way. But if she really had absolutely zero feelings for him, why was her mind so full of him lately? Especially now that Sterling treated her with total coldness instead of his usual warmth. Now, honestly, shouldn't she feel relieved? Instead, she felt this crushing empty void. Worse, seeing Sterling getting close with another woman felt like hot daggers stabbing her right in the eyes. Sterling was supposed to belong only to her. Even if he was just faking a relationship, he had no right to be that close. Her friends demanded to know if she loved him. Though she quietly denied it, her mind was in complete chaos. Annoyed, Elowin stormily walked out of the party room. The cold night breeze hit her, bringing back some sanity. Elowin drove straight to Cassandra's office, running into her in the lobby. No matter what, she desperately needed to apologize. Cassandra looked pretty shocked. Elowin quickly asked where Sterling was staying in Ning City, mentioning she had spotted him at the last auction. Speaking with deep sincerity, she explained she finally knew the truth about Barnaby, realizing how badly she had misjudged Sterling. She begged for his address to apologize in person, But Cassandra cut her off with a completely cold, flat tone. Sterling had himself clinically hypnotized. Every single memory of you has been completely erased from his mind. All the terrible things she did in the past are completely wiped from my brain. Elo stood there, totally speechless. No wonder I did not care to fawn over her when we met. She had truly become a complete stranger to me. On top of that, my brother is already engaged to Aurelia Frost. Their wedding is at the end of the year, Cassandra warned. If you actually care about what the Vance family did for you, leave him alone. That chapter is closed. Boom. It felt like a lightning strike hit Elo right then, making her stumble. Engaged? Actually getting married? He is going to marry someone else. How is that even possible? Suddenly, Elo remembered how she warned me at the banquet not to ruin her wedding with Barnaby. Back then, I just casually asked who gives a damn about her trashy wedding. Did she think she was the only one getting married? Turns out, I already had an arranged marriage set up, while she ridiculously assumed I was still hung up on her and clinging to the past. Sterling has always been the type to love hard and move on completely. Once he realized you were marrying Barnaby, he literally hypnotized himself to wipe you from his mind. Cassandra sighed. It is clear you two do not belong together, because you simply do not deserve my brother, she said, walking away. Elo stood frozen right there. Even now, she could not accept the brutal fact that I was marrying someone else. Turns out, I was not just acting to get back at her. I truly erased her from my mind, and I was actually marrying someone else. A heavy, bitter feeling filled Elo's chest. Did she actually love Sterling Vance? If she did not care, why did my upcoming marriage hurt this bad? Elo knew she could not keep lying to herself. Admitting her feelings should not be terrifying. After all, I loved her too, right? We were deeply in love. She was not going to just let Aurelia Frost have me. The man she loved for 7 years was me. Elo's blood boiled. A voice deep inside her screamed to go find me and win me back. But the problem was, I had completely forgotten her. If she rushed to me blindly, would I even want to return to her? Elo suddenly hit a major roadblock. She had to make me remember who I was. She had to prove that the woman I once loved was Elo Thorne. Now ask yourself this, if we actually loved each other, why should I marry a total stranger in an arranged wedding? With that in mind, Elo immediately started searching her house for any traces I had left behind. Every single year on her birthday, I used to send her gifts, paired with long, heartfelt letters I wrote myself. But just as she started searching, she remembered that she had thrown all of it away. All those long paragraphs I had sent? She casually deleted them. She had personally erased every single trace of my love. She asked Aunt Wang where the card and silk scarf from the sofa went, making her stop her chores. Aunt Wang said she threw them out, making Elo freeze. Before the maid could even answer, Elo sprinted out the door. A huge dumpster sat right outside the villa, and the trash truck arrived at the same time every single day. Running outside, she saw the truck already speeding away. Elo chased it for an entire kilometer until the driver finally stopped. She dug through the disgusting, foul-smelling trash for what felt like hours, until she finally pulled out the scarf and a wet, crumpled note. The handwriting on it was mine. I would absolutely recognize it, as the writing overflowed with love, even if my memory was completely gone. This was all the proof she needed that she was the one I loved. Elo held those items like a priceless treasure, clutching them tightly. After a quick shower, she tracked down Aurelia's home address and hopped on a flight to Ning City overnight. Elo rushed over to the villa in absolute excitement. From down the road, she spotted a black sedan parked outside. Looking through the glass, she saw me pinning a woman against the passenger seat, gently kissing her lips. Elo froze in absolute horror before charging forward in a blind rage, slamming her fists against the door. Pounding on the glass, she screamed for me to get out, yelling that Aurelia is not the one I love. She screamed that amnesia was no excuse for kissing another woman, feeling like she was losing her mind. Honestly, this was just too painful to watch. She never imagined a day where I would be this close to another woman. Was I not supposed to chase after her forever? Shocked by the sudden interruption, Aurelia and I shared a confused look before reluctantly stepping out of the vehicle. I demanded to know why she was here, totally baffled, repeating that I did not know her, but Elo just aggressively wiped my lips. Then she shoved the card and scarf into my hands, crying out that I have always loved her. She claims I loved her for 7 years, and says this letter she is holding is the proof. I looked down at the handwriting on the paper, realizing that yeah, I actually wrote it. Elowan expected to see me completely break down in shock, but I stay entirely calm. Sure, I wrote it, but so what? If I chose to forget her, it was purely for self-preservation. Some people just are not worth remembering. My voice is cold. I liked her for 7 long years and she ignored me, which means she did not care. So why show up now? Elowen stumbles over her words, begging me, Sterling Vance, to believe she actually loves me now. She says Barnaby deceived her, and she is sorry she realized her feelings so late. She begs me to come back, promising to treat me right this time. Around us, the whole street falls dead silent. Beside me, Aurelia anxiously squeezes my hand a little tighter. I gently rub her palm to comfort her, look up at Elowen, and tell her straight out that she is just a stranger to me now. A stranger. Elowen whispers the word, absolutely crushed. She cannot believe she is actually nobody to me anymore. Honestly, think about that. I literally chose hypnosis to completely erase her from my mind. That is how done I was. I look at her coldly, telling her to leave my life alone. The only woman I love now is Aurelia Frost. Elowen gets so furious, her eyes practically bulge. She screams, asking how I could move on so fast and love someone else already. I frown, staring at this completely unhinged woman standing in front of me. Honestly, I cannot comprehend how I loved her for 7 years. Was I blind? Aurelia steps up, warning her that she won't hold back next time. Aurelia pulls me away as we walk off together. Left standing in the dirt, Elowen can only watch our retreating backs. Her chest tightens like she is suffocating under a heavy weight, aching so much she can barely breathe. It is not supposed to end like this. Remembering how horribly she treated me, she realizes the mess she made. Overwhelmed with bitter regret, Elowen tells herself that I am just angry, and she has to find a way to make amends. She thinks that's the only way to win me back. 2 days later, I see her again, but she has shaved her head bald, with her arms and legs in casts. Dragging her broken body, she limps over and begs me, Sterling, to forgive her for the past. Elowen sounds incredibly desperate. She asks if I am still mad, begging me to just come back to her when the anger fades. In her mind, she only just realized she cannot live without me, since she was so used to seeing me every single day. Her beautiful long hair was completely gone. Hold on, she literally jumped off a 3-story building just to break her own limbs, hoping to prove her regret. Insane, right? She actually hoped this extreme stunt would make me feel better. I just sigh, telling her she is wasting her breath because she is a complete stranger now. I do not hate her, but I do not want her near me either. I ask her to just stop pestering me. Elowen searches my eyes for even a tiny flicker of affection, but there is absolutely nothing left inside them. I really do not care about her anymore. Tears suddenly burn in Elowen's eyes, as the harsh reality finally sinks in. She never expected this rejection to hurt so badly. Sobbing apologies, she collapses onto the ground, looking up at me like a beggar, pleading for just one more chance. She begs for forgiveness, claiming she will love me far more than Aurelia ever could. This woman insists I only have amnesia, claiming I never actually stopped loving her. I tell her straight, the whole reason I chose to erase my memory is because I was already completely done loving her. Rubbing my temples, I tell her never to return, because her face disgusts me. Deep hurt flashes across her eyes. For days, she drowns her sorrows at a local bar, completely blacking out on cheap liquor every night. Every time she closes her eyes, she sees my cold face. If old Master Thorn had not personally dragged her out of there, she would never have gone home. Back home, she numbly forces herself to work. Dialing a number, she asks if the job is done. The caller confirms they found 3 homeless men to torture Barnaby. The following day, Elowen gets a package of brutal photos showing a ruined Barnaby. He is lying on the ground in a twisted shape, clothes shredded, with filthy marks covering his bare skin. Barely breathing, he looks half dead. Clutching the photos, Elowen rushes straight over to find me. Shuffling the pictures at me, she begs me, Sterling, to look how she got revenge, promising to make everyone pay tenfold. She keeps begging me to return, but I just look at her and admit that every time I see her, I feel physically sick. Without a single change in my expression, I tell her to never show her face again. I just walk away, leaving her frozen solid. Elowen stands there as her heart is slowly ripped to pieces. Nothing she does matters anymore. If only she could turn back time, she would actually cherish the love I gave her. Some things are gone forever once you let them slip. Elowen learned that harsh truth way too late. By the time the truth fully sank in, any hope of happiness had completely slipped away. 6 months later, she heard about my wedding. Elowen actually crashed the venue, only to get thrown out by security like a screaming toddler. Naturally, the clip went viral online. Furious, Grandpa Thorn handed all of Elowen's shares to her cousin. Let's be real, you can't polish dirt. The family refused to let her ruin their entire legacy. Left with nothing, Elowen spiraled into a numbing haze of drinking and smoking every single day. Then, a year later, she saw the news online. Aurelia was pregnant. A sudden, agonizing pain stabbed right through her chest, leaving Elowen struggling to breathe. She started abusing heavy sleeping pills just to force her mind to shut down, because whenever she was awake, she couldn't stop thinking about me. It was driving her absolutely mad. Clutching my photograph, Elowen desperately kissed my face on the printed paper. Swallowing several pills, she drifted off, praying she would hallucinate my face in her dreams tonight. But unfortunately for her, she would never wake up from this dream.